I'd like to invite us to continue to be in a few moments of silence. This singing bowl has been with me and my ministry for many years, and it's always amazing whenever I decide to play it because it takes on different tones and different depths. And for those of you that are musicians, it might be in D. You can tell me afterward. But it depends on the vibrations, the number of people in the room, and your personal vibrations. And I would like to humbly thank all of you for thanking for the new members that have come in over the last 18 months. But they would never have come in if you weren't the community that was welcoming them. So each one of you has a special vibration. You speak to people after coffee hour. You know when to laugh. Sometimes you know when to listen and then speak some more. And people during the week to make sure that they're aware of the many activities, etc. So because we're celebrating Buddha's birth and death and Enlightenment Day, you all get to choose one of those now. Why have just a birthday? You can have all of it. At least birth and Enlightenment is what we're looking for. I'd like to move you into an extended time of silence, listening to the singing bowl, and then we'll have complete silence, and then we'll come back out of that silence, accompanied by the vibration of everyone in this room. If you would please unfold your legs and your arms and your hands and become an open vessel, your hands facing up if you'd like to feel energy facing down, if you'd like to just maintain your own energy in this time of quiet and silence. Mary Oliver shares her words, Buddha's last instruction. Make of yourself a light, said the Buddha before he died. I think of this every morning as the east begins to tear off its many clouds of darkness, to send up the first signal, a white band streaked with pink and violet, even green. An old man, he lay down between the two solid trees, and he might have said anything, knowing it was his final hour. The light burns upward. It thickens and settles over the fields. Around him, the villagers gather and stretched forward to listen. Even before the sun itself hangs, disattached in the blue air, I am touched everywhere by its ocean of yellow waves. No doubt he thought of everything that had happened in his difficult life. And then I feel the sun itself as it blazes over the hills like a million flowers on fire. Clearly, I am not needed, yet I feel myself turning into something of inexplicable value. Slowly, beneath the branches, he raised his head and he looked into the faces of that frightened crowd and of the people that had gathered there, carrying the light forward. So be it. So you can tell the old school ministers from the new school ministers, because the new school ministers never bring in a written sermon on this odd stuff called paper. For 34 years, I have been bringing in paper. I haven't gotten to the iPad, but I did get at least to the telephone. So we shall see how this assists. I am in a precarious place that I share with Hamilton from the famous play when he felt like he was running out of time. Some of us feel that in our lives. We know it's time to clean up the basement and it's time to clean out the garage and bring things to the rummage sale so that we can kind of move to the next phase. And for others that are heading off to parks and great adventures of new life and new horizons and new beginnings, life becomes that piece that, yes, you just have to devour it, right? Gobble it up, gobble it up. I'm at that place to share as much information with you as possible. And of course, we don't want to make it boring. So what I'm going to introduce as far as the Buddha's teachings is just a little bit that's going to be held together by the beginning of our lives, the middle of our lives, and the end of our lives. We'll see if I use anything from my security blanket and my stack of information here. We might, but hopefully it won't involve this whole book. Kind of looks like the Bible, doesn't it? So, in the beginning, the first thing I'm reminded to say is Buddha, similar to Jesus, hold on to your hats, according to theologian Karen Armstrong, was not just one person. Back so many years ago, their stories would be told of a wonderful sage who taught up on the hill. And the story would go that this Siddhartha was born into a family of royalty, and he was protected because all the walls around where he lived were very high. So he wouldn't see any of the poverty or sadness or grief or skirmishes that were going on. He was a very protected child. But he also wondered, what goes on after a certain point? What goes on the other side of that wall? And so, sad to say, by that time, he had a child and a wife, but he scurried out beyond the walls to find and look for enlightenment, or what is the meaning of all life. And I think that if you studied the lives of other sages, you would find that they were imperfect people like us, and they got to this time where they traveled and hopefully came to big ahas. And so Buddha's big aha was that we're all born, right, into suffering. Nobody came into this world, unless you're ready to confess you came from the alien spaceship, other than through labor pains of someone else and your own pain of having to feel this dry air and not continually, and then, there you were. And so you all started with some suffering. And so suffering is definitely a part of our universal experience. And then we decide what we do with that suffering. So some of you might still be talking about your birth experience. I hope not. But if you are, you would be practicing what Buddha expected, that you would tell the story over and over again. So therefore, revisiting the pain, you are grasping for something. You're grasping for that contentment, but you revisit the pain by explaining it to people. It is possible to get out of the cycle of pain if you stop the grasping. So the grasping could be for anything. I could do true confessions, but I've already solved the Starbucks one. I got my own little espresso machine now, so I don't have to pay $5 for that perfect taste. I can do it at home. And they don't put as much ice in it at my house, and so I'm not wasting the flavor. But when you're grasping for more coffee, and it has to be just the right kind. Some of you, luckily, are addicted to church coffee, so that's pretty inexpensive. But you're grasping for something. I'm going to give you a personal example. Years ago, and I might have shared this with some of you already, I have a grandson who's going to be 18 in September, and we've had a varied, tumultuous experience in our relationship due to a lot of complications in our family. And so there would be certain times that we'd see my grandson and certain times that we wouldn't be able to. And this would cause me much angst, even to the point of praying to the patriarchal God, please watch over my grandson. And everything turned out fine. However, I constantly was thinking about how can I see this grandson? What did I need to do? How many phone calls did I need to send presents, etc. And the whole thing fell apart during COVID. I had sent a perfect box, half the size of this book, that had Reese's cups perfectly lined up in this perfect box. I loved it. And I mailed it so that it would get there early for Easter. And then COVID started. And so I was charged with sending germs from the big city all the way up to his rural area, because I must be some, I don't know, Svengali of causing pain through Reese's cups. Anyway, so that changed the whole relationship. And many of you have stories of similar patterns that COVID caused things. The point is, I was constantly grasping, and I was constantly in suffering. And then one day, I woke up, and I realized the little boy next door, that's a year younger than my grandson, was available every day. And so I got to see him every day. And lo and behold, he didn't have any grandparents. He's from China, and so his grandparents have long passed. And so I became like his grandpa. And it's lovely because I get to do crafts with him, and I also get to be very professorial. Ryan, you have to do more of your physical therapy. I know. So he gives the same responses that my grandson would. You know, the eye rolling, everything, those interpretations and expressions were there. And so the point is for you to look at, what are you grasping for more of? Because right now, right in this moment, we all have enough. Whatever it is, we have enough. And so what you put into the pot, therefore, is the second phase of the Buddhist teaching, is the center of your life. When you start to be very mindful of what you're saying, ingesting in. You've heard me talk about that. It's not just what you ingest in, Thank you, Mike, for the donuts again. It's not just the donuts, but you're ingesting thoughts. That's why you're here in this community, because you align with a lot of the thoughts here. You're ingesting sounds of the music you choose and the people that you spend time with. You're ingesting through visuals, whatever Netflix show you decide to watch or turn off and open one of these old-fashioned things instead. And so the ingesting, the mindfulness is the middle part of your life. And some of you are lucky enough, even though you're young and it doesn't seem like you're in the middle part of your life, you're way ahead of the game because you choose where you spend your time and what you take in a mindful way. So our longer meditation this morning, which wasn't very long, right, Kristen? It was just, Kristen's our meditation expert, but this was probably 2.5 minutes. This time is something that you get to carry and then tap in. When somebody on the road is driving you crazy, or somebody says something and you're like, I can't believe that, you can tap into this beautiful space that you've helped to create inside of you, so that you don't even have to make a little funny face. You can just be very listen and be mindful, and you can use this phrase. I never thought about it that way. And then you can just let it go. You don't have to be right anymore. Remember when you used to have to be right all the time and defend everything you said or did? You don't have to do that anymore. So the third phase I'm going to move us to is something that I think I've touched on here, and I think it's just a very intriguing approach. I always wanted to do this. Give a sermon without the sermon. Yes. So the last phase is called Bardo. This is very interesting, and there's different descriptions of Bardo. The Bardo is a place, it's kind of a spiritual space and space that we move into when we pass away. And the Buddhists teach that the Bardo is this place of letting go, letting go. Now, what's very interesting about the Bardo, and I took a long class about this. I've taken a class about labyrinths, walking in circles, and then about dreaming. It's lovely. Ministry is great. So Bardo, when we go to sleep at night, sometimes, we're just on the screen and then try to go to sleep. Well, you should take, some time, but you can almost schedule your mind, fine-tune your mind and say, I would like to remember my dreams, and I would like to remember and know that my dream is a dream. You know how sometimes you have a dream and you wake up and you're like, that just seems so real. Something was chasing me, or somebody was eating something they shouldn't and I was trying to take it away from them. But sometimes you wake up and you have a dream, and the dream you can remember, and you know that the dream was a dream. Lucid dreaming, right? Some of you are such experts at this. You're like, Leonetta, you're just given the 101. That's right, just the 101. So the point of this dreaming that everybody is encouraged to do is because if you start dreaming and you know the dream is a dream, you also become very adept at letting go. The dream is a dream, you let it go. You don't have to call your best friend and say, I had a dream about you and we were, in bikinis in Fort Lauderdale in 1989, and you got a sunburn and we had to go to the hospital. You don't have to say that. It was a dream, and you know it was a dream, and you let it go. So this process of letting go will be very during the guiding experience. And so when we're dying or when you're with somebody who is actively dying, and the reason I'm feeling so sad is that Stephen Bimmer and Maria and Michael and I have a dear, dear friend. She's like Ruth Gordon from Harold and Maude. The first time I met her, she's 20 years older than me, and the first time I met her, we were separated at birth. We have the same vibration. Just an amazing person in her last active dying days. When you're dying, you need to let go, not grasp. I wish I could have more Starbucks. I wish I could spend time with my grandson. I wish I could go to Yellowstone again. Not grasp, let go. Let go and be part of this amazing process that people told us about. Some have come back and told us about, but the process of letting go rather than grasping. And so Buddhism, because Dan, over a year ago, he said, can we have a Buddhist class that goes a little deeper? And it was Jeanette's fault because she kept calling for board meetings and wanting to have more meetings. And so we never quite got there. I really encourage you all to go further with the Buddhism. You can Google it. There's iPads and iPods and talks. But this idea of letting go, you can practice it during the day, not holding on, not repeating your suffering, not making it grow. You can practice it during the middle time of your mindfulness, and you can practice it during your dream time. And then whichever one of you goes next, send us back a message, understand that the letting go served you well. So all of that and more, even this, kind of be ready to let this go. Or you can just write it down. The stages of lucid dreaming. Workbook. I know I do. Workbook and hidden pictures, my favorite. So look at this book if you have a chance afterwards. And may all of you experience a lucid dream where you know that you're dreaming this week. So be it. So